There she is, trying to take my job. Recording in progress. Team Annas, we are here with two Annas. One's a doctor and one's not. I'm going to let you guess which one. That's right. Dr. Anna Cabeca is here with me, Anna Vicino, host of the Eat Happy Kitchen. I don't know what we're calling this. We're just having chats. We sit down at my table, Dr. Anna.
We're having delicious conversations.
Oh my gosh.
Yummy.
You should be a copywriter. Just kidding. A doctor pays better. Hi, you're the girlfriend doctor. Why do you call yourself the girlfriend doctor? Tell us.
Oh my goodness. Well, it actually came about in a funny way. So I was, what do you call it? Curbsiding some friends that wanted some medical advice around hormones. And one of them had been the executive producer for Oprah. And she's like, oh, and then I did their podcast, which used to be called it was the Sherry and Nancy show. And before that, it was the 50 something show. And it was anyway. So Sherry Salata and Nancy Holler, like, oh my gosh, you're our girlfriend doctor. And that just stuck. And
you want the Oprah producers to brand you. That was good thinking. Well, I like that.
Well, when she did, it's like, I really can't argue with this, right? I really can't argue with this. And it felt so good and felt so natural. And it's really where I want to meet people as their girlfriend, not as the end all be all, because it's always a partnership in making decisions about our body. And I would just say, I want women to be empowered and not to give their power away to a prescription pad, to a surgery, to a drug, to anything. So
to an impersonal 15-minute visit, like you bring bedside manner to a whole new level.
Yeah. Yeah. And to create this this really personal conversation virtually now, it's really important. It's a gifting. And it really is a gifting. And I'm grateful for that. I didn't see, so much use for it when I was in medical practice, because it would put me behind schedule all the time, right? Sure. Being the girlfriend doctor, I was always running late because I wanted to listen, I wanted to learn, and I wanted to advise. But I always do say like that, it is really, our medical care needs to feel right. And we need to feel better, not just see numbers that are better, because that's important. I love watching our numbers, but I have so many patients, they've been on statin medication, steroid medications, this, that, and the other medication, but they really don't feel better. In fact, sometimes they feel more depressed, more moody, more irritable, and they just needing what's the next medication. And that's not the road we need to go down.
Girl, you're preaching to the converted. So I couldn't agree more. And, in my work for the past 10 years, I've gotten to interview wonderful doctors like yourself and experts and researchers and scientists. And so I feel like that's been my personal journey to health. I've wanted to share it with the world. I always say I'm a HIPAA violation on myself because I just share everything. And so when I saw you, we both spoke at an event together, and that's how I met you. When I saw you speak, I was like, oh, this is so good, because I host, weekly accountabilities in Clubhouse. I host cooking demos on Instagram. I talk to people. I'm in the trenches, Facebook groups with tens of thousands of people, and the same questions keep coming up. So when I met you, I was like, ding, ding, ding. This is the woman I need to talk to.
Nice. I knew immediately. I saw you speak. And first of all, you spoke right before me pretty much. Maybe there was a speaker in between, but I was just laughing. Oh my God, I get so nervous speaking. And you were my anecdote for the day.
For sure. Good. I'm so glad. I'm glad I can bring some joy. So here's, okay. I want to talk about your book, Keto Green. Okay. Mm-hmm. So I want to back it up and say, first of all, there are not a lot of doctors, especially at least OBGYNs that I've met, who are even using the word keto. What made you unafraid to go there?
Oh, that is a good question. And it was, it's been my life experience. So I work, there's a couple things, and tell you some of my background. So I'm trained at some of the best institutions and practiced in some of the best, trained in some of the best institutions in the world. Right. And so this kind of always relying on my doctor's bag. And for a portion of my life, my doctor's bag was empty when it came to me and when it came to helping patients. So, one of my daughters has a seizure disorder that started when she was in her early 20s. And she's my stepdaughter. And I tried to figure out what it was, right? And one of the things that I recognized from the research was that, ketogenic diet can help decrease seizure activity.
Yep.
And I was like, wow, that's fascinating. That's interesting. So in my neurologic patients, I started more of a keto type diet, carbohydrate restricted, as well as my candida patients, patients with chronic yeast infections or inflammation, those with diabetes and negative consequences always came to yeast infections of that, but not just gynecologic vaginal yeast infections, systemic infections, sinus infections. So I started recognizing the power of the nutritional component even more so in patient care. And then when I hit my mid to late 40s, I experienced, and I had been well over 240 pounds at one point, lost that weight, kept
Crazy.
it off, crazy,
Amazing.
crazy.
Yeah.
And I started like, without doing anything different, 20 pounds came on, feeling like it was overnight, right? All of a sudden. And I'm like, I'm not doing anything different. What's going on? And I was like, well, first of all, and I was irritable and I was cranky and I'm 48 and I've got two teenagers in school, one in middle school, one in high school, and a wee one in elementary school, all daughters. And if any moms out there raising daughters know the power of manipulation and they will take advantage of your brain fog, let me tell you, not a good place to be. So,
She won't remember she said that. Don't worry. You can get away with
exactly.
it.
Exactly. Or if I keep saying or keep asking it in different ways, she'll eventually say yes. Because yeah. So
They do
power
wear
of
you
argument.
down. Yeah.
They wear you down. And I was wearable, right? Like I was just burnt out. I was really at that stage. I was burnt out from everything. And so the weight gain was really distressing. So I went very strict carbohydrate restricting, went very strict keto. Again, been familiar with it for my oldest daughter. And then I started feeling keto cranky, keto crazy, I call it, irritable, like not comfortable in my own skin, even overreacting instead of responding. And I was, what's going on here? And I'm a functional medicine doctor. I'm trained OBGYN, trained in hormones, trained in sexual medicine, trained in functional
You have
medicine,
literally all of the certifications. Check, check, check,
all of
check,
them.
check.
Yeah. There's more, send them my way. I want more.
Right.
But no, I'm done. I said, I'm not getting any more board certifications. So yeah, for now. And so I dug into the research. I started doing what I tell my patients to do when I'm running them through a modified elimination diet. I check your urine pH. I want it alkaline because I know we're kicking out, we're supporting the liver, we're supporting detox, we're kicking out toxins, and we need to do it safely. And acidic pH is associated with more inflammation. And so I checked my urine pH and it was as acidic as the pH paper read. Like, I use pH strips. You can use pH paper
You just get those
and
at the drugstore.
you can get them at the drugstore. These are the ones I'm holding are keto pH strips that have ketone and pH on it
Oh,
because
cool.
I created these because otherwise I was having all kinds of paper in my bathroom.
Well, I need to put the link to those in the show notes.
Absolutely. And so checking your urinary ketones and pH at the same time. And especially, so I was as acidic as my pH, as the pH paper read. So who knows how, actually acidic I was. And that was an aha moment for me. That was a light bulb. And I was like, oh, no wonder I'm feeling so irritable. So I just started adding the alkalinizers. I wasn't willing to gain 1 pound back for that alkalinity, but I knew that I had to add the herbs and spices. I used my Mighty Maca Plus supplement. I started doing 3 scoops a day. I added lemon to my morning water. I added herbs and spices and the low carbohydrate greens, the beet greens. Oh, I made some up last night, Anna. You should have been in my kitchen with me and
Mm,
my daughters. We were
mm,
batch cooking. Oh, you would love
love
it.
it.
And so the beet greens and the microgreens and the herbs and spices, broccoli sprouts, cruciferous vegetables for hormone balance. I started really identifying the foods to help support hormones, hormone detoxification, as well as the adrenal glands. And so I added those in, and lo and behold, I got more alkaline. And in good, strong ketosis at the same time. And that combination is tricky. It's challenging. Like I always tell clients, try it, get to that state and tell me how you feel. And they're like rock star, energized, feeling so clear. And that's what it was for me. Not only did I lose those 20 pounds very quickly, but I also gained my memory back. I gained clarity, and nothing in my external world had changed, but I was calmer, happier, more joyful. In the Bible, it says the peace that surpasses all understanding. I mean, there's a physiology to that. There's a mental, physical physiology to that. And also recognizing that when I'm stressed and when I'm fearful and when I'm not sleeping well, that, it doesn't matter how well I ate for the day, how much I spent at Whole Foods, that urine pH will be acidic because cortisol is the most acidifying hormone in our body. So it's not just about what we eat, it's about how we think, when we eat, who we're eating with, right? All those things come into play in what I call the keto
Don't
green
dine with your
way.
enemies, people.
Don't dine with your enemies. Don't dine with the news on.
Oh, that's the truth. Okay. You said 100 things that I want to ask you about. We're not going to get to all of them, but let me start to break this down because there are so many women in my audience. And also I got a text because I was saying in my clubhouse yesterday, I'm going to talk to you and to look out for this interview to come in a few weeks. And I also got a text from a guy in my group saying like, where is it going to be? Is it going to be live? I want my wife to listen. So I was like, yes, that's right. Men, if you have a woman in your life, you're going to want to hear this too, or at least send this interview to her. Okay. What is the difference? Oh, I forgot to plug in my computer. Hold on. Now we're charging. We don't want the computer to die in the middle of it.
That's happened to me once.
Explain. Okay. You're explaining the idea behind the alkaline foods. So let me just see if I'm getting this correct. Uh-oh. There you are. If you add in more cruciferous and leafy greens to a pretty traditional meat-based keto carnivore diet, you're going to take it from acidic to alkaline. Is that the...
Yes, you're going to help support your body getting rid of acidity or changing to more of an alkaline urinary pH, which we know from the great new book by Dr. David Perlmutter called Drop Acid about the importance of clearing uric acid from your system. And heavy meat-based and meat and wine, which I could live on, meat and wine, is very will increase your uric acid, and your high uric acid is associated with metabolic syndrome, diabetes, heart disease.
Isn't the uric acid, is that the thing in gout?
It is. And that's what, as physicians, we were trained, well, you only need to measure uric acid if it's associated with gout. No, it is a powerful metabolic marker. And what I know now is that when we increase the urine pH, you are clearing more uric acid out of your system. So then you're more metabolically healthy. That's that powerful. That's so powerful.
Amazing. Wait, so how should we be asking our doctors, like how we now know to ask for a full thyroid panel or adrenal screening? Like, should we make sure you're screening the uric acid? Is that something we should be
Absolutely.
Or is it part of the CBC?
And you can get uric acid monitors, just like you can get glucose monitors. And I'm about to
another
order
monitor.
one. I know. Oh God, I love all these gadgets, but I need a bigger kitchen. So you can, and I haven't done that yet, but it used to be part of our normal chemistry screen. As physicians, we would order that. Now people can also do self-testing, because sometimes physicians don't, aren't aware, but you can ask as part of a chemistry to do a uric acid screen.
So it's something you can, like for example,
order it yourself. Yeah.
I ask for my advanced lipid panel whenever they do the cholesterol, because I already know that we're going to have to look at the different particles.
Fractional particles. Exactly.
Fractional particles.
It's so important. It's so critically important. Otherwise, I always think a bucket of sand, you're looking at a bucket of sand, but there's a lot more in it. There's a lot of stuff in it, and you want to look at what that is. Inside. Well,
that right there could be saving people, because probably one of the number one issues that comes up, and I've been doing this work with my podcast co-host Vinny Tortorich, who started NSNG, No Sugars, No Grains, which is a different flavor of keto. It's just trying to simplify things a little bit. Don't eat processed sugars and don't eat grains. And then from there, you can customize to whatever you need to do. Like for me personally, with the autoimmune that I have, I don't do dairy and eggs, or at least I'm not supposed to. The holidays were another story. But
me too, Anna. Oh my gosh, because it's the holidays, and there's
holidays
cheese and Give
There
me
is
otherwise no
cheese.
dairy. I know.
There is cheese. There
And
are
there's cream.
delightful egg dishes. There's cream. There's butter.
Yeah.
But
10 pounds for me during the holidays. Inflammation. I didn't eat 10 pounds of cheese, 10 pounds of inflammation.
right.
Thank you very much. It's 8 pounds off now. So good.
That's incredible.
Mhm.
So the number one question that I get is from people who are, they come to what Vinny and I are doing, and they're, no better way to put it, extremely metabolically broken, right? With a
Mhm.
lot of weight to lose. This is not everybody, but
Mhm.
a typical, person, a female, let's say, and she loses anywhere from 80 to 150 pounds and then plateaus with about anywhere from 30 to 60 pounds left to go. And so, we answer the usual questions. Have you tried intermittent fasting? Have you tried to quit dairy? Have you done blood? You know what I mean? You just try to do, and I'm not a doctor, so that's why I'm so excited to talk to you and hear about these shifts that you can make, turning your, try it, you guys. Try to turn your diet alkaline, test your uric acid.
Test your uric
Maybe that's
acid, check your urine
key.
pH on a daily basis to get that optimized. Those are things that are game changing. Check to actually make sure you're getting into ketosis, right? If you're not testing, you're guessing. And then, Anna, really big part, a beautiful part of what you said is when we hit those plateaus, we're doing everything we were doing and it stops working. So, my next
Yes.
book coming out, it's called Menopause.
Menopause.
It's
Tell us about
five
menopause.
five strategic plans to help you break through a plateau. They're all 6-day plans. Sometimes we just need to change things up, a fresh way to look at things, a bump to our metabolism. It's like cross training your digestive system, right? Cross training to break through that plateau. And we may need something different. Sometimes we're so metabolically broken that we can't even digest or we're reactive to healthy foods, to the
Yep.
greens and to the fruits and to all those things. So we become reactive, and that's a shame. So sometimes we need
Yeah.
to pause that. And sometimes we've been so restrictive, we need to add healthy carbs back for a week and let's see what we do. And then sometimes it's autoimmune stuff. We really need to clear out some of the most common inflammatory. And it's hard to do. Like if you do it all at one time, we call that fasting.
Yes.
So these are 5 6-day plans to make it really easy. There was a 6th one in there, but my editor made me take it out. She says too restrictive. We'll have to put that in somewhere else. But it was really
You could do that,
a
like
very
super
clean
secret
order
down
plan.
low bonus
Super
content.
secret down low. The missing plan. Actually,
If
a
you're
good
really
idea.
dedicated, I'm just kidding. I never want to
It's
make
called
people
it's
feel
called
like,
water fasting. No.
listen, water fast. I did a 4-day water fast and it was very illuminating.
Very
I drank
eliminating.
salt water and some what's it called? Apple cider vinegar. The apple cider vinegar and the baking soda I had, and I felt like that was my meal every day because it was very illuminating. I don't ever want to do it again. I like the 24-hour at the most, but
Yeah.
again, I'm a fan of experimenting as long as you
It,
do it safely. Yeah.
do it safely, go into it safely and come out of it safely, and monitor yourself while you're there. Like when I've done some real extended fasts, I wear a continuous glucose monitor. It's pretty enlightening. And also just seeing in those situations what's happening to your blood sugar, what triggers you, and especially when you're fasting, like what your mind does to your blood sugar. You're fasting wearing a continuous glucose monitor, and like you just start, you know, ruminating about something negative, or just think, oh my God, I've got this happened to me for KetoCon in Austin one year. I was like fasting, getting on stage, my blood sugar went up to 150. Fasting.
Fasting.
Normally
It's
it's
insane,
80. It
right?
would stay 80, but I was so freaked out about, I get so nervous before I speak
That's the
that
magic of cortisol, which you brought up
magic of
earlier.
cortisol. Mhm.
So that's another thing that people say is I don't think people, can you explain how strong cortisol is? Because I don't think people understand, for example, with fasting, how much cortisol you could release, and that might not be the best thing. Like, how do you know if it's good for you,
Right.
if it's not for you, if you're really, what do you do to explain
Well,
cortisol? The whole
yeah.
thing.
Yeah, and I think what we can do at one time could work really well, and what we can do at another time in our life could not, right? And so this is again this whole intuitive, really, we have so much um, so many layers of misinformation and maybe even some denial, like self-denial, that we aren't in tune with what's really happening to our body. And I was that way with dairy. Number one, I didn't want to get rid of dairy. I'm like, it's
No,
part of my culture. I need feta cheese. It's
the
in
dairy is the
everything Middle
biggest
Eastern.
temper tantrum anybody ever has. I call it the temper tantrum because they get
Yes.
upset when they cut out processed sugars and grains, but they're like, I get it. I've heard enough about carbs. I get it. But when you say it might be dairy, they're like, no, over my dead
Yeah.
body.
Yeah. But wait, dairy's keto. I'm like, I know. And it's full of hormones and it's really full of disruptors. And there's no other species that eats another species milk. So why are we doing it? And it's true. And there are better forms than others, but yeah, big temper tantrum for that. And just figuring out where, what is good for you, like what works for you. And so with cortisol, and really need to understand cortisol because it is affecting our nation right now. It is affecting the hormones of our nation. So cortisol is one of our steroid hormones. It's our natural anti-inflammatory, like you were to get a steroid shot, cortisone shot. This is cortisol. Our body is designed to increase cortisol when we are anxious, when we are attacked, when we're fearful, and when there's inflammation in our body. Our body is going to produce this cortisol. Cortisol is going to create a stream of glucose. Now you've got rapid food and energy to every cell in your body, especially your brain, which is the organ that soaks up the most glucose, right? We're going to fuel you so you can respond to that attack. You can, and in the cortisol, we can douse that inflammation. If you get stabbed while you're running away from your enemy or fighting, you're not going to feel it. We're on it, right? We're going to work on it. And that's how our body's designed. But it's not designed for us to be secreting cortisol while we're sitting on our couch watching TV,
In
drinking
the
a
middle of a
glass of wine
pandemic, stressed
in the
out,
middle of
not knowing
pandemic.
what's going on.
And cortisol is made from progesterone and pregnenolone. So these are our mother
Shit.
hormones that
Yeah.
are, all our other hormones are derived from predominantly cholesterol. So if we're taking a statin, we could be reducing all our other hormones. And it's been shown that statin medication in men decreases testosterone. I'm sure it does in women. It just hasn't been studied that way. And
We don't
so
study
because
women. What are you, crazy?
why study women? It always throws a curveball
I
in.
know. They're
Just
too
costs money.
complicated.
Yeah. So we need more women
Mhm.
scientists to study women, just like we have now
STEM,
more
STEM,
women
STEM, STEM.
physicians. Yes. Yeah. And so we're really excited about that. Um, uh, working with STEM too, but cortisol is derived from progesterone and pregnenolone, and when we are, and the same estrogen, testosterone, DHEA are all derived downstream from progesterone and pregnenolone. So when we're stressed, cortisol is taking away our supplier for our reproductive hormones. So here it is producing this incredible response, and thank goodness for it. When we need it, we want to be able to use it, but mostly we don't need cortisol on a daily basis. We need it to wake us up in the morning, fight
Right.
inflammation here and there in our body, but not to be on constant drive. That's everyday trauma that can cause a autonomic trauma response, post-traumatic stress. And I see that. And when that happens, when cortisol is a predominant hormone in our body, our hormone of love and connection, oxytocin, is down. So cortisol goes up, we have to react. We're reacting based on fear. Our oxytocin, our hormone of love and connection, goes down. No time for that, right? But so when cortisol is up for a long time, it also, your system, that our protective system, let's say, will say, okay, cortisol, you are frying us out. I'm shutting you down. And so cortisol is suppressed, secretion is suppressed, and oxytocin is low at the same time. So
Oh,
what do we feel? We feel disconnected. We feel isolated. We
you
see
feel
people we
sad.
know
Yeah.
and we don't want to connect with them. We have this oxytocin cortisol disconnect, and it's the physiology of divorce. It's the physiology of burnout. It's the physiology of depression. It is an isolation and loneliness. It is that physiology. So that's how powerful cortisol is. That's why, when I say that there's a lifestyle, keto green is a lifestyle because it's increasing oxytocin, decreasing, managing cortisol, improving our own natural hormone production as naturally as possible, and and working with my mother nature and not against it. And so that's cortisol is destructive, not just to the body over time, but to your relationships.
I mean, that was a masterclass right there. If you guys
Mhm.
get nothing from this, check your uric acid, try an alkaline based keto diet, and listen to what she just said about cortisol. We're in a pandemic, but we're in an epidemic of disconnection and loneliness and fear and people not knowing what to do and biting each other's heads off on social media and judging each other's choices for vaccines and life. And it's a very painful place to be, this collective unconscious that we've built. And it's an interesting thing for you to tie the food that we eat to this concept of the collective unconscious. Until we can start to individually, we have to do that. We have to take responsibility for what it is that we're eating so we can heal ourselves, so we can start to connect again, which is what we want. It's not like you want to be
Yes.
lonely. It's not like you were born like, oh, when I'm a child, I want to be lonely and sad. No, of
Yeah.
course not.
Yep.
We
I want
come
to live
forth.
alone. Right.
Yeah, we come
Mhm.
forth wanting to connect. We're connectors. So thank you for that.
Yeah. And community, the word with unity, community. And I think like what you said about like the so much angst, and it's we, maintaining respect for our choices, respect for others, and not, I've seen a lot of justification of an individual's choices being an attack on others' choices. And it shouldn't be that way at all. So I think it's with respect of each of our of our choices. And then also our intuition. Women, we are strongly intuitive. When we go against our intuition, it rocks our world. It's a constant underlying stressor that physiologically creates all kinds of hormone disruption issues. I've seen it. In order to help some women, it's more than, I will say, it takes more than hormones to fix our hormones. My first book is The Hormone Fix. I was like, takes more than hormones to fix our hormones,
You
right?
guys get all of her books because they're all so good
They're,
and easy
yeah, I
to
will say
read.
thank
That's the
you.
thing. It's like you make it easy to understand. Oh, I want to say this about Keto Green. Worth the price of admission alone is where you list the 13 hormones and you
Yes.
describe so clearly and concisely what each one does. And then you say, here's some symptoms if this hormone's an issue. And I was like, oh, I recognize, for example, for me, again, HIPAA violation on myself, all of my numbers are amazing, but I still have the 20 pounds to lose and my inflammation markers are high. And so I saw the adiponectin one and I was like, oh, that's interesting. I'm going to dive down that little rabbit hole and try the alkaline thing. You know what I mean? So it was like that right there, just to have that aha moment is like, don't sue me, Oprah, because I used aha moment, was to like, it was great. So I'm definitely linking to all of your books in the show notes. Just go get them, you guys. Just go get them. And because I love, here's the idea with books. You read a book, it's if it sparks one idea that improves your life, it's the least money you will ever spend on
Yep.
self-improvement is a
Yep.
book.
Yes. Yeah. And there's some magic when you open a book in general. When you have that book, you open it, you refer to it, it calls to you. And I think that about a lot of what I read. Sometimes it's just about opening and say, okay, I'm going to start here. And well, what can I gain from this today? What's calling you? And again, that's like our body, there's so much intuition and energy around us that is part of the magic of being alive. And we need to recognize that, not suppress it.
I find it interesting too as women, and you and I are around the same age. So we've
I'm
had
55, girl.
you're 55, I'm 48. So I'm at the place where you were talking about. So
Want to come
I'm on the
celebrate your
path.
50th with you.
Yes, that'd be awesome. I'm on the path. And it is interesting because as women, we do have such a strong intuition, and yet we're taught to not listen to it, but instead be good and do what you're told. And, and then it takes a little bit of unwrapping, which I always say at 40, you kind of start to like, oh, hold on. I don't have to do what everybody tells me to do. I can follow my intuition, which is why older women get so, the wise crone is the archetype, that we have. But I'm like, oh, I'm gonna be a hot old wise crone. Okay. Like, I don't want to be, I
Oh
don't want to
yeah,
be
no,
a brittle thing. And so the
no,
hormone thing is where it's at for that. Like,
yeah.
It's like
Yes.
we want to come back into our intuition and really tune into that. But you can't do it if your cortisol shot up.
No, you don't have the energy, right? So it's about reclaiming our energy and doing it as naturally as possible. Diet, lifestyle, the supplements we take, using bioidentical hormones when necessary and at
Talk about that.
reasonable doses. I'm a big fan of bioidentical hormones. I especially progesterone in the post menopause and postmenopause, because it's the primary bucket hormone. In women, we produced it from our ovaries. And as our ovaries decline, that sharp decrease in progesterone creates all these symptoms: the brain fog, the irritability, the weight gain, the mood swings, the lackluster to hair loss, all, decrease in collagen, even contributes, of course, to vaginal dryness, because as I mentioned, all hormones are derived from progesterone. So as that plummets, we have all these consequences. So using that, allowing a natural transition into menopause, but with support, is
Okay.
where I advocate supporting our adrenal glands. Men, adrenals and testes make their, they get most of their progesterone from their adrenal glands. So they don't see that big, steep decline. And progesterone is neuroprotective. When I've prescribed progesterone, for example, to a woman who was she's 50, say 55 years old or 60 years old, postmenopausal, due to a hysterectomy where she had her, she may or may not have had her ovaries removed, but she was on estrogen only. And this has happened hundreds of times, but on estrogen only. And I start using progesterone to help her get a good night's sleep. And she comes in, Dr. Anna, I feel like a cloud has lifted. I feel more awake, alert, my memory's back, and progesterone is neuroprotective. So I think that's one of the hormones I will take till I die. And I use the transdermal progesterone. I created one with progesterone and pregnenolone because I like both of those, and I use it topically to help with, of course, to be absorbed naturally and not bypass, not to be metabolized by the liver, but to be transdermally absorbed. So it's a very safe way to do it. And of course, for anti-aging skin reasons, combine healthy hormones and looking good at the same time.
Well, I will say too, cutting out processed foods is a game changer for your skin.
Oh,
People do
yes.
always ask about my skin. And I'm like, first of all, I probably do have some good genetics going on, but my mom at my age did not look like how I look. And she was a
You
sugar
look
addict.
amazing. Your skin is
Well, thank you.
amazing.
And you do too. And I got to
Thank
say,
you.
the hormone, the HRT, I'm very curious about tell folks, how do they even go about asking if that's something that they need? Do they test their hormones? Do they ask their doctor? Do they find a separate doctor? Where do they even begin? Because I'm sure
The-
women out there going, crap, I probably should test
Yeah.
my hormones.
What do I need to do? And
Yeah.
that's always a really good question. There's different ways to do it. Definitely postmenopausal, a great safe way is bioidentical transdermal progesterone. And I think that's a really good way. You can look at my balance cream for an example of what I consider the gold standard. And so you want to know the source. So that's number one, postmenopausal. Perimenopausal, when you're having PMS symptoms, when you're having irregular cycles, when you're having heavier than normal bleeding, when you hate your husband or your boyfriend 2 weeks out of the month, hating life 2 weeks out of the month, it's your hormones, right? And so those are good symptoms to say, okay, I need more progesterone. And so asking your doctor to do a day 21 progesterone. And at that same time, you'll want to also look at TSH. You'll want to look at your uric acid. Now we know while we're doing it, let's look at a full thyroid panel. So free T4, free T3, thyroid antibodies. And so that's what we're going to do at those peak hormone levels. And early on in your cycle, when you're cycling day 2 through 4, you want to look at your FSH, LH, and estradiol. And so looking at those markers tells us, okay, what ovarian reserve do you have here? How much is your hypothalamus essentially having to push and to trigger your ovaries to produce enough estrogen, testosterone to be reproductively healthy, essentially. And so that information is, your gynecologist would be able to do that. Your family physician would be able to do that. Internist would be able to do that. And really looking beyond that because of functional, and you can do salivary test and you can do urine test. Precision Analytics does a great hormonal panel just from urine. You can do it at the privacy of your own house. And so, and send that in. And there's another lab, Knowing Labs, does hormones. They send you a kit and you do a blood spot, and that gives you those results. So nice too, not to have to go into a busy lab. So there are options that you can self order testing, where we didn't have that 20 years ago, that you could self order
Yeah.
testing. But so there's definitely ways to do that. And I give those tests exactly what I want in my book, The Hormone Fix, and
Great.
say, okay, this is ideal. At some point or another, I want all these within the first year of working with you.
For anyone who's listening who is, I know you mentioned early in your cycle. So anyone who's in 20s and 30s and looking to either have kids or just manage what's happening, do you have any specific advice to that age group to set them up so that when
Yeah,
the
I would
inevitable
say,
perimenopause begins, which by the way, I've done a ton of medical narrations, and one I did was about a device that helps to I wouldn't say prevent, but helps with vaginal atrophy. And it was 40 hours long. And I had to basically narrate what happens to the vagina at every stage of life with women to the minutest detail.
oh
And
my God, I
luckily,
want to hear that. I talk about
well,
this all the time.
I
Wow.
had a female
Awesome.
director, and I was so glad because I was like, after every take, we would both be like, wow, okay. It was like, and then the epithelial cells thin, and you know what I mean. And it was just so sad. Like everything was just so sad.
It's so sad.
It
It's
was
so sad.
medical, so it was. But so that's why I say, what advice? But the thing I learned was that perimenopause can technically really begin at 35, and I didn't know that, and that's why they call it a geriatric pregnancy if you're pregnant 35 or over, because your
Advanced
body has
maternal age is the,
advanced maternal age. I don't know if that's even better. How's that
that's
better?
terrible. No, it's terrible. And if you have more than one child at that age, you're then, because you're going to have to code this, elderly multigravida. Isn't that terrible? Isn't that terrible? I mean, this terminology,
You have to laugh.
coders were men. Yes. Yeah, no, it was
The coders
terrible
were men.
terminology. So, we
And
really
you
still
change
need
it
to
to
change
something
all that.
nice.
Change it to something sweet. Say, oh my gosh, like they've got to come up with some really, like ripe terminology. So,
Unintended.
yes.
Okay, so what's your advice to the 20s and 30s folks who might be
Yeah.
struggling and also want to set themselves up
And
for
I'm surrounded by them because my 4 daughters, right? So there's
yes.
20, 30s getting pregnant now, and also seeing what they're dealing with, and also having worked in 30 years as in medicine, and 20 of those years as a gynecologist and obstetrician. So I really tell you listening, my 20 and 30-year-olds, that an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. It's never too early to start taking care of your body. And I would tell you, the first thing is like eliminating dairy and sugar and grains is game changing for your fertility, for your reproduction, for your quality of life. Cancer cells start 10 to 15 years before we ever see something. So decreasing inflammation. And I would prescribe you, first of all, my book, The Hormone Fix, and to really understand kind of what's happening, what's coming, and plus the program, Getting Keto Green. While I target it for menopausal women, it works for all women, PCO. And again, I have my last night, I'll show you my kitchen here. It's still chaotic, but I have my daughters come because we're all doing my Keto Green 16 plan together. So
Great.
we're batch cooking here. So that 22, 25, 13, all in the house last night cooking. 3 of my 4 daughters were here. So it's healthy, it's optimal. And considering too, also the toxins we're putting on our skin. So cleaning all that up sooner is going to keep your hormones balanced, and trusting your intuition and honoring your natural cycle, not using anything to suppress your body's natural hormone production.
You talking about birth
It's
control?
birth control. Mhm. Birth
Hormonal
control
birth control, I
pills,
should
hormonal
clarify.
birth
Yeah.
control pills. Yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of birth control,
Yes.
but if and using hormonal birth control for the shortest amount of time necessary that we need to, and looking at other alternatives, like I'm a big fan of the Paragard IUD,
I was
non-hormonal
just going to ask the non-hormonal
intrauterine.
IUD, is that your
Yes.
preferred?
Yep. Yep. Used 3 of them myself different times.
I was gonna say at the same time.
At different times, like between kids.
Her uterus is
Take
very
it out, put it
powerful.
in. Yeah, yeah. I
It
had
needs
to make
3.
sure one was not enough. Oh my gosh. So, and it's also, and some fear about the non-hormonal IUD is increased heavy periods, increased pain. The lifestyle and the recommendations that I give to improve that lifestyle, decrease inflammation, those symptoms go away. So, having good
Wow.
iodine rich foods, decreasing dairy, eliminating glutens and grains as much as possible, decreasing inflammation in your system, supporting your adrenal glands, and sometimes adding additional herbal support. I mean, like chase tree, and uh, so many other good nutrients that can be very helpful.
I like in Keto Green how you kind of take everybody through. It's interesting how you don't jump. The book's called Keto Green 16, and you don't jump to keto until after kind of explaining why first gluten can be inflammatory, then grains, then an excess of carbohydrates, then how the body can change, which by the way, I'm married to the man who I joke is ASAG, all sugars, all grains, because he's one of the metabolic, I don't know how to describe it, genetically gifted people who can eat whatever he wants and still have a 6-pack. But now he's 50 and he's not metabolizing things the way he used to. And I like how you explain that in the book, that like, you know what?
Yeah.
Shit you used to eat doesn't sit the same way,
Mm-mm.
you know? So when you're ready, tell us why is that? Why does the body do that? We can also pause if you need to pause.
Oh, no, that's good.
Okay.
Yeah. So, the body, I think there's all reasons, but definitely our decline in our hormone, especially progesterone and pregnenolone, and is part of the equation. It is protective. It's protective. And the other piece too is that things can only wear on you for so long before something breaks. You
Right.
can I always say, think of a fence around your garden. If you don't maintain it well, it's going to fall apart and things are going to get through. Rabbits are going to come eat your carrots. And if you lean on it, press on it, rub on it for too long, it's going to break down. Again, things are going to get through. And so that's the image of our membranes, our cell membranes. So too much, too often is wearing on our symptoms. And another big point to make is like we can eat really healthy, and this I will say, and I apologize if I offend anyone at this moment, but that chicken salad every day. And I've heard so many people, okay, I eat a chicken salad chicken on a salad every day.
Right.
I'm like, you're probably sensitive. I got to take that away from you. I'm sorry. No more chicken
Got
salad.
to take a break.
And
You got to
you got
vary
to
it
take a
up,
break.
right?
You've got to change it up. You have got to change it up. It's good stressors. And it is so true. You need a healthy amount of stress, but everything in its time.
That's great. Well, when does Menopause come out?
April 12th. It is coming
Okay,
out April 12th. And we've got
great,
some goodies. We have a sneak peek. We'll give your audience and some
great.
recipes and a menopause quiz to see which plan you should start on
We love a
first.
quiz.
I
Love a
love a
quiz.
quiz.
I'm here for a
Mhm.
quiz. I am so excited for this book to come out. I'm so happy that you spent this time with us. I want everybody to go. Where do you want people to go? I love your YouTube page. Plus your interviews are incredible. You've got so many wonderful people covering so many different topics. Like each one's a deep dive on something that could help your life, folks. So where do you want people to find you? Obviously the books I'm going to link to your
Yeah,
site.
thank you.
Of
Thank you. Yeah,
course.
so dranna.com is really easy, but the Girlfriend Doctor on YouTube. I would love for you guys to subscribe, follow me there, give your comments, and yeah, and ask me anything. I will say there's no such thing as TMI.
Yeah, you're my kind of gal. Well, thank you very much for being here. I appreciate
My
it.
pleasure. Thank you for having me. It's been a great to reconnect with you, Anna.
Absolutely.